My species eats yours, human, but he made her dinner instead, and everything changed. The plasma burns scarred the earth in a pattern Rowan Blackwood had seen only twice before. He knelt at the edge of the trench, fingers brushing scorched soil still warm from atmospheric entry, too steep for a controlled landing, too precise for random debris. Someone had crashed here less than an hour ago. He pulled his rifle from his shoulder and moved forward, boots silent on the torn ground. The canyon walls rose on either side, casting long shadows in the fading light. This far into the frontier, crashes meant one of two things: desperate humans fleeing the inner colonies or something else entirely. The wreckage came into view around a bend. Not human design. The hull plates were wrong, organic curves instead of hard angles, a dark purple-black metal that seemed to absorb light. Rowan's pulse kicked up. He'd seen reports of these ships, heard the stories from traders who came through his settlement. The Cathara. A sound stopped him cold. Movement inside the wreck, then a low growl that resonated in his chest. "I know you're there, human." The voice was female, accented, each word carefully shaped. Rowan didn't lower his weapon. "Come out slowly," he said. "I don't take orders from prey." Metal shrieked. A section of the hull peeled back and she emerged. She stood perhaps 5'8", white skin marked with intricate red patterns that curved along her arms. Her neck disappeared beneath the tears in her armor. Long red hair fell past her shoulders, and two cat-like ears swiveled toward him through the strands, tracking his position. Her eyes were molten amber, pupils slitted vertical, fixed on him with an intensity that made his survival instincts scream. She held a weapon he didn't recognize, barrel pointed at his chest. Blood ran down her left leg from a gash in her thigh. "You should run," she said, taking a step forward. Her leg buckled. Rowan caught her before she hit the ground. The weapon discharged, energy bolts scorching the earth 2 feet from his head. She snarled, twisting in his grip, surprisingly strong despite the injuries. Her hand went to his throat, claws extending from her fingertips. "Let go. You'll bleed out," Rowan said calmly. He met her eyes, showed no fear. "That wound needs pressure and binding." She blinked, her ears flattened against her skull. "Why would you help me?" "Why wouldn't I?" Her laugh was bitter, pained. "My species eats yours, human. We've consumed 17 civilizations. You're next on the list." "You planning to eat me right now?" She studied his face, confusion flickering across her features. Her grip on his throat loosened. "I should. But you won't." Rowan eased her weight against him, feeling the tremor in her muscles. "You're going into shock. Let me help." For a long moment, she didn't move. Then her hand fell away from his throat. "If this is a trick..." "No tricks." He helped her to a flat section of ground near the wreckage. She kept her eyes on him the entire time, body tensed like a coiled spring. When he reached for his pack, her hand shot to the knife at her belt. "Medical supplies," he said, opening it so she could see. He cleaned the wound on her thigh, working quickly while she watched him with those amber eyes. She didn't flinch as he irrigated the gash, though he saw her jaw tighten. "What's your name?" he asked. "Sarakith." "Rowan." "I know," her eyes narrowed. "Rowan Blackwood, former colonial scout. I was sent here to find you." His hand stilled for a fraction of a second. "Why?" "Human settlements have been vanishing. 16 in the past solar cycle." She watched him tie off the field dressing. "My superiors believe your species is hunting us. I was sent to confirm if humanity needs to be eliminated." The words were delivered without malice, just fact. Rowan pulled out his water canteen, offered it to her. She stared at it like it might be poisoned. "If I wanted you dead, I'd have left you in that wreck," he said. Sarakith took the canteen, drank deeply. When she handed it back, her fingers brushed his. He treated her head wound next, working gently. She smelled like ozone and something wild he couldn't name. "You're good at this," she said quietly. "Practice." He finished with the bandage. "You need food, real food." "I told you my species." "Eats mine. I heard." Rowan stood, offered his hand. "Doesn't mean you can't appreciate a good meal." She looked at his hand for a long moment, then took it. Her palm was warm, calloused from weapon training. His shelter was built into the canyon wall, camouflaged but solid. Inside, he got a fire going while Sarakith lowered herself onto one of the cushions. She watched him move around the space, her expression unreadable. Rowan pulled preserved meat from his stores, fresh vegetables from the hydroponic setup in the corner, began preparing food with calm efficiency. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. He glanced up. "Helping you, feeding me, a predator who came to assess if your entire species should die." Rowan added seasoning to the pan, the scent of garlic and herbs filling the shelter. "Because you're hurt. Just because your people see mine as prey doesn't mean I have to act like it." He brought her the plated food. Sarakith stared at the meal, meat and vegetables cooked together, garnished with wild herbs. She took a tentative bite. Her eyes widened. "This is good? Unexpected." They ate in silence. He watched her features soften, noticed how her ears had perked up, no longer flat against her skull. "In all my research on your species," Sarakith said finally, "nothing prepared me for this." "For what?" "For you to be kind." Rowan leaned forward. "Humans were prey once, thousands of years ago. Everything hunted us. We were weak, slow, no claws or fangs, but we learned, we made tools. We became the apex predator on our world, not through strength, but through ingenuity." Sarakith's tail swished slowly behind her. "You evolved. Maybe that's what your superiors are afraid of. Not that we're dangerous, but that we're different." Thunder rolled in the distance. Rowan moved to the entrance, looked out at the darkening sky. Storm clouds gathered fast. "We're going to be trapped here for a while," he said. Sarakith stood, testing her injured leg. She moved to the window, stood beside him, close enough that he could feel the heat from her body. "Trapped together," she said softly, "or two people trying to survive." She looked up at him, something uncertain and new in her expression. "Rowan," she said, and his name sounded different in her mouth. "There's something you should know. I wasn't just sent to observe you. I was sent to track you specifically." The storm broke outside, rain hammering against the canyon walls. The disappearances, they're not random. Every settlement that vanished was thriving, showing advanced development, and every Cathara ship we lost was investigating these same areas. Her hand found his arm, gripped it. "Someone doesn't want humans and Cathara making contact. Someone is making both our species disappear." Lightning flashed, illuminating her face. "My crash wasn't an accident. I was shot down, and whoever did it is still out there." The storm raged through the night. Rowan reinforced the shelter's entrance while Sarakith rested, her injured leg elevated on cushions he'd arranged for her. Rain hammered the canyon walls, turning the dried riverbed below into a torrent of rushing water within minutes. "This will last at least a day," Rowan said, sealing the final weather panel. "Maybe 2. "Good." Sarakith's ears swiveled toward the entrance, tracking sounds he couldn't hear. "Whoever shot me down won't be able to track through this." He settled near the fire, close enough to see her clearly in the flickering light. "Tell me what happened." She shifted, wincing slightly. "I was doing a high-altitude scan of the region, standard reconnaissance. Then my systems went dead. All of them simultaneously. No warning, no malfunction alerts, just nothing." More sophisticated, it felt targeted, like something reached into my ship and switched it off. Her claws extended reflexively. "I managed to restart basic systems during the fall, but whoever hit me knew exactly what they were doing." Rowan studied her face, the way tension held her shoulders rigid despite the pain she must be feeling. "You said settlements and ships were disappearing. How many total?" 16 human colonies, 3 Cathara scout ships. She met his eyes. "All in this frontier sector, all within the past year." "That's coordinated." "Yes." She leaned forward and the movement brought her closer to him. "My superiors think humans are eliminating potential threats before we can establish dominance. Your leaders probably think we're hunting you." "Which means both our species are being set up." Sarakith nodded slowly. "Someone wants a war between humans and Cathara, someone who benefits from us destroying each other." Thunder cracked overhead, so close the shelter trembled. The fire danced in the sudden pressure change. Sarakith's hand went to her blade instinctively, and Rowan noticed the way her pupils dilated in the dim light. expanding to take in every detail of their surroundings. "You're always ready," he said quietly. "I'm a hunter, it's what we do." "No," Rowan shook his head. "You're a warrior, there's a difference." Her ears tilted forward, curious. "Explain." "Hunters kill for survival, for food. Warriors fight for something bigger, for their people, for a cause they believe in." He added wood to the fire. "You came here knowing you might not survive. That's not hunting, that's sacrifice." Sarakith was quiet for a long moment, watching him with an intensity that made his skin warm. "How did you end up here, Rowan Blackwood? The reports said you were one of the best scouts in the colonial fleet. Then you just disappeared." "I didn't disappear, I chose this." "Why?" He considered how much to tell her, this alien warrior who had crashed into his life with secrets and danger. Outside, wind howled through the canyon like something alive and hunting. "Because I was tired of treating every new world like a resource to exploit," he said finally. "The colonial fleet sees planets as assets, indigenous life as obstacles. I wanted to learn from the frontier, not conquer it." "That's not very human of you." "Maybe it's exactly human. We're adaptable, remember?" He met her gaze. "We learn, we change, we don't have to be what we were." Something shifted in her expression, a crack in the predatory mask she wore. "The Cathara believe we are what we've always been, apex predators, the strong consuming the weak. To suggest otherwise is heresy." "What do you believe?" The question hung between them. Sarakith looked down at her hands, at the claws that could tear through flesh and metal alike. "I believed what I was taught, that prey species existed to sustain us, that our dominance was natural law." She flexed her fingers, claws retracting. "But natural law doesn't prepare you meals when you're injured. It doesn't risk its life to save someone who came to judge if your entire species should be eliminated." Rowan moved closer, slowly, giving her time to retreat if she wanted. She didn't. He could see the red markings on her skin more clearly now, not random patterns, but deliberate designs, each curve and line precise. "What do these mean?" he asked, gesturing to the markings. "They're earned. Each one represents a trial, a victory, a milestone in a warrior's life." She traced one that ran along her collarbone. "This was my first successful hunt. I was barely grown." "And this one?" His finger hovered near a pattern on her shoulder. "My oath to serve the Cathara Empire." Her voice went quiet, an oath I may have just broken by trusting you. Their faces were inches apart. Rowan could feel the heat radiating from her, could see the rapid pulse at her throat. She smelled like rain and something spicy, something that made his blood run hot. "I should hate you," she whispered. "But you don't." "No." Her hand came up, fingers tracing the line of his jaw. Her claws were retracted, the touch gentle despite the strength in those fingers. "I don't understand what you're doing to me." "I'm not doing anything." "You are. You're making me question everything." Her thumb brushed across his lower lip, making me want things I shouldn't want. Rowan caught her wrist, held it gently. "Sarah." The shelter's warning system chirped. Rowan was on his feet instantly, rifle in hand. Sarakith rose more slowly, favoring her injured leg but moving with lethal grace. "Motion sensors," Rowan said, checking the portable display. 3 contacts moving through the storm. "Human or Cathara?" "Neither." He frowned at the readings. "Signature's wrong for both. They're using active camouflage, military grade." Sarakith's lips pulled back, revealing sharp canines. "Then they're whoever shot me down." They moved together, Rowan killing the fire while Sarakith gathered her weapons despite her injuries. The shelter had defensive positions built in, firing ports concealed in the rock. Rowan had prepared for trouble even if he'd hoped to avoid it. "Can you fight?" he asked. Her answer was to check the charge on her weapon, movements efficient despite the pain he knew she must be feeling. "Try to stop me." The contacts moved closer, spreading out in a tactical formation. Professional, military, Rowan's mind raced through scenarios, calculating angles and possibilities. "They're not coming to talk," Sarakith said. "No. Then we give them the fight they're looking for." Rowan positioned himself at the main firing port, Sarakith taking the secondary. Despite everything, The differences between their species, the danger, the impossibility of what was happening between them, they moved like they'd fought together before. Instinct and trust flowing between them without words. The first contact appeared through the rain, a shadow moving too precisely to be natural. Rowan tracked it, finger on the trigger. "Now," Sarakith breathed. They fired together. The figure dropped, armor sparking. Two more emerged from the storm, returning fire with weapons that tore chunks from the canyon wall. Rowan rolled left as energy bolts chewed through rock where his head had been. Sarakith's weapon sang, a high-pitched whine that ended with another attacker falling. "They're pushing too hard," she said, reloading with movements made awkward by her injury. Coordinated assault. Rowan fired 3 quick shots, forcing the remaining attacker into cover. They want us pinned. Or distracted. She was right. The sensors showed movement on their flank, 2 more contacts circling toward the shelter's weaker rear entrance. Rowan cursed, recalculating. 5 attackers, military tactics, equipment that could take down a Cathara scout ship. "We can't hold here," he said. Sarakith bared her teeth. "I'm not running." "Neither am I." Rowan grabbed his pack, started loading essential gear. "But we need answers more than we need a last stand. There's an old mining complex 2 kilometers east, defensible, and it might tell us who these people are." She studied him, then nodded. "Lead the way." They moved fast through the rear exit, Rowan supporting Sarakith as her injured legs slowed her down. The storm provided cover, rain so thick it reduced visibility to meters. Behind them, an explosion rocked the shelter as their attackers breached the main entrance. "Keep moving," Rowan said. The canyon twisted, offering natural concealment. Rowan knew every meter of this terrain, had mapped it over 3 years of living here. He guided them through passages too narrow for vehicles, across rock faces slick with rain. Sarakith moved beside him, her breathing controlled despite the pain he knew each step must cause. "How much further?" she asked. "Half a kilometer." Energy bolts flashed overhead, distant but searching. Their attackers had tracking equipment, were closing the gap. Rowan pulled Sarakith into a narrow crevice, their bodies pressed together as a patrol passed 30 meters away. He could feel her heart racing against his chest, feel the heat of her breath on his neck. "They have our scent," she whispered. "Then we use that." Rowan pulled a small device from his pack, programmed it quickly. "Decoy beacon. It'll mimic our biosignatures for about 10 minutes. He tossed it deeper into the canyon, watched on his scanner as the patrol diverted to follow it. Sarakith's hand found his in the darkness, squeezed once. They ran. The mining complex emerged from the storm like a skeleton, all exposed girders and dark tunnels carved into the canyon wall. Rowan led them into the depths, past rusted equipment and collapsed sections until they reached what he'd hoped to find, an old operations center, its systems dormant but intact. "Help me get power running," he said, moving to the emergency generator. Sarakith worked beside him, her technical knowledge matching his own. Within minutes, dim lights flickered to life and ancient computer systems began their boot sequence. "This facility is 50 years old," Rowan said, accessing the main terminal, abandoned when the mining company pulled out after the frontier conflicts. "Why come here?" "Because 16 settlements disappeared and someone had to be staging that kind of operation somewhere." His fingers flew across the keyboard. Remote location, existing infrastructure officially abandoned, perfect cover. The systems came online fully, and Rowan's breath caught. Files. Thousands of them, dating back months. He opened the first batch, and Sarakith moved closer to see the screen. Security footage showed humans and Cathara in holding cells. Research logs detailed biological experiments. Communications revealed coordination between bases across the frontier sector. "Ancestors preserve us," Sarakith breathed. Rowan opened another file, this one marked with high-level Cathara military encryption. The translation software struggled, but the meaning became clear. Weapons development. Biological agents designed to target specific genetic markers, human DNA in some cases, Cathara in others. "They're creating bioweapons," Sarakith said, horror in her voice, "using both our species as test subjects." Rowan pulled up deployment schedules, target lists. His blood ran cold. "They're planning to release these on human colonies. frame it as a Cathara attack, which would justify total war. She gripped the edge of the console. My empire would mobilize every fleet, every warrior. We'd exterminate humanity to the last child. And after we're gone? Sarakith met his eyes, understanding dawning. They'd do the same to us. Make it look like humanity's final revenge, weapons we'd deployed before our extinction. Leaving the frontier empty for whoever's really behind this. The pieces fell into place with terrible clarity. Two species manipulated into mutual destruction, clearing the way for a third party to claim the entire sector. Rowan scrolled through financial records, shell corporations, coded communications. There, Sarakith pointed at a file. That's Cathara High Command encryption, top level. Rowan opened it. The message was brief, but devastating. Authorization for the Black Site operations. Approval for bioweapon deployment. Signed by someone within the Cathara military hierarchy itself. No, Sarakith said, her voice breaking. This can't be real. The High Command would never... Not all of them. Rowan found more files, evidence of a faction within the Cathara military working with human corporate interests. A group on both sides, they're using the war to consolidate power, eliminate opposition. Talrek. Sarakith's claws extended, scoring marks in the metal console. He's one of the names in those files. He's a decorated commander, respected by the entire empire. And apparently engineering genocide. Alarms shrieked. Rowan spun to the security monitors, saw their attackers flooding into the complex. 10 of them now, moving with military precision. We need to get this data out, he said, loading files onto a portable drive. Both our peoples need to see the truth. Sarakith grabbed his shoulder, turned him to face her. They'll kill us before we get 10 meters. Then we don't go out together. You take the data, She kissed him. It was fierce, desperate, her hands fisting in his shirt as she pulled him against her. Rowan responded without thinking, one arm around her waist, the other cradling the back of her head. She tasted like rain and lightning, and when she pulled back, her eyes were blazing. We fight together, she said. We survive together, or we die together. Those are the only options I'll accept. Rowan stared at her, this alien warrior who had become something more in the space of a day, who made him want things he'd never imagined wanting. Together, he agreed. They gathered weapons from the facility's old armory, loaded up on ammunition. Sarakith moved with renewed determination despite her wounds, and Rowan felt something shift between them. Partnership, trust, something deeper that neither of them had words for yet. The attackers breached the operations center. Rowan and Sarakith stood side by side, weapons raised, the data drive secure in Rowan's pack. The first figure through the door wore Cathara armor, but the insignia was wrong. Modified elite forces. Sarakith of the 3rd Fleet, the figure said, voice modulated through a helmet. You've been deemed compromised. Surrender the human and the data, and your death will be honorable. I've seen your honor, Sarakith snarled. It's written in the blood of innocence. So be it. They attacked as one. Rowan dropped the first attacker with a headshot, muscle memory from his scout days taking over. Sarakith moved like liquid death beside him, her injured leg forgotten as she closed the distance with the nearest soldier. Her claws found the gap in his armor, and he went down gurgling. Left flank, Rowan shouted. She spun, firing her weapon in the same motion. 2 more dropped, but there were too many, and they kept coming. Energy bolts scorched the air, one grazing Rowan's shoulder and spinning him around. Sarakith caught him, steadied him, her strength surprising. The tunnels, she said. They ran deeper into the complex, using the narrow passages to their advantage. The attackers couldn't flank them here, couldn't use their numbers effectively. Rowan led them through maintenance corridors he'd scouted years ago, Sarakith covering their rear with controlled bursts of fire. A soldier rounded the corner ahead. Rowan didn't hesitate, dropping him with 2 shots to center mass. Sarakith vaulted the body without breaking stride, her athleticism breathtaking even now. There, Rowan pointed to a ladder leading up. Ventilation shaft, leads to the upper processing levels. They climbed fast, Sarakith favoring her good leg but refusing to slow down. Above them, the shaft opened into a vast chamber filled with ancient machinery, Ore processors 3 stories tall, catwalks crisscrossing overhead, shadows everywhere. Rowan pulled Sarakith behind a massive conveyor assembly. Their breathing was ragged, synchronized. She checked her weapons charge and he reloaded his rifle. "We can't keep running," she said. "No," Rowan pulled the data drive from his pack. "But we can make sure this survives even if we don't." He accessed a terminal built into the machinery, started uploading files to every communication satellite in range, human frequencies, Cathara military channels, independent traders, everything. "They'll try to jam the signal," Sarakith said. "Let them try." Rowan's fingers flew across the keyboard. "I'm routing through 30 different relay points. They'd have to shut down the entire sector's communications grid to stop it." Footsteps echoed through the chamber. Their attackers had found them. Sarakith moved to the edge of their cover, counting targets. 8 visible, probably more. Uploads at 60%. A voice boomed through the chamber, amplified, "Rowan Blackwood, you've made this more difficult than necessary." Rowan recognized the accent, Cathara, but speaking flawless human standard. He glanced at Sarakith, saw her jaw clench. "Talrek," she whispered. A figure emerged from the shadows below, Cathara armor gleaming even in the dim light. Taller than Sarakith, broader, with scars that spoke of countless battles. He removed his helmet, revealing features that were handsome by Cathara standards, marred only by a burn that covered half his face. "Commander Talrek," Sarakith called out, standing. Rowan tried to pull her back, but she shook him off. "I should have known you were behind this." "Sarakith." Talrek's voice carried genuine warmth. "I trained you myself, taught you everything you know about being a warrior, and this is how you repay that trust? By siding with prey? By siding with truth." "Truth?" Talrek laughed, the sound cold and sharp. "The truth is that both our species are weak, humans with their sentiment and compassion, Cathara with their honor and outdated codes. The galaxy belongs to those strong enough to take it, not those foolish enough to share it." Rowan kept working, the upload at 75%. His shoulder throbbed where the energy bolt had grazed it, warm blood soaking his shirt. "You're willing to kill millions for power," Sarakith said. "I'm willing to do what's necessary to ensure the survival of the strong." Talrek gestured, and his soldiers spread out, surrounding their position. "Join me, Sarakith. You were my best student. Together we could rule the new order that rises from the ashes." "I'd rather die." "That can be arranged." Talrek raised his hand and his soldiers opened fire. Rowan grabbed Sarakith, pulling her down as energy bolts tore through the machinery above them. The upload hit 90%. "We need more time," Rowan said. Sarakith met his eyes, and he saw the decision form in them before she moved. She kissed him hard, tasting of blood and determination. "Then I'll buy it." She was over the barricade before he could stop her, moving with the speed and grace of her species. She hit the nearest catwalk, running, drawing fire away from Rowan's position. Her weapon sang, dropping 2 soldiers. She leaped to another level, claws finding purchase on metal. Rowan forced himself to focus on the terminal, 95%. Sarakith fought like something from legend, using the machinery as both weapon and shield. She tore through supports, sending a soldier plummeting. She ricocheted shots off metal surfaces, hitting targets she couldn't see directly. But there were too many, and they were closing in. 100%. Rowan grabbed his rifle, fired at the soldiers trying to flank Sarakith's position. She glanced down at him, and their eyes met across the chaos. He saw the fierce joy in her face, the wild freedom of a warrior fighting for something she believed in. Then Talrek shot her. The bolt caught her in the side, spinning her around. She fell from the catwalk, hit a conveyor belt hard. Rowan was running before conscious thought, sliding under fire, reaching her as she struggled to rise. "Got you," he said, pulling her behind cover. Blood soaked her armor, dark against the white of her skin. The shot had punched through just below her ribs, and he could see the wound was serious. "The data," she gasped. "Sent, every channel we have." She smiled, blood on her teeth. "Good." Talrek's voice echoed again. Touching. The prey protecting the predator. "It won't matter. Even if your data reaches both our peoples, I have allies in every level of command. They'll call it fabricated propaganda. Nothing will change. Rowan held Saraketh against him, feeling her blood warm against his hands. She was fading, her breathing shallow. Around them, the soldiers were closing in, weapons trained on their position. "Rowan," she whispered, "I'm here. Thank you for showing me what we could be." "Don't." He pressed harder on the wound, trying to stem the bleeding. "Don't you dare give up." Her hand found his face, claws retracted, touch gentle. "Not giving up, just wish we had more time." The soldiers were 10 meters away. 5. Rowan reached for his rifle with one hand, kept pressure on her wound with the other. If this was the end, they'd go down fighting. A ship descended through the chamber's open roof. Not Cathara, not human, something else entirely. Sleek hull, weapons hot, landing with a precision that spoke of expert piloting. The boarding ramp dropped and figures emerged, humans and Cathara together, wearing uniforms Rowan recognized from the holding cell footage. Prisoners they'd freed with the data upload. James Sullivan led them, the settlement leader Rowan had met once before his disappearance. Beside him was a young Cathara warrior, smaller than Saraketh, but moving with the same lethal grace. "Need a hand?" James called. Talrek's soldiers opened fire on the new arrivals, but they were ready, taking cover and returning fire with weapons they'd clearly liberated from the facility. The chamber erupted into chaos, three-way battle between Talrek's forces, the freed prisoners, and Rowan's desperate defense of Saraketh. "Can you move?" Rowan asked her. Saraketh nodded, teeth gritted. He got her upright, half carrying her toward the ship. James and the others provided covering fire, pushing Talrek's soldiers back. They made it to the ramp. Rowan laid Saraketh on the deck as the ship's engines roared to life. The young Cathara warrior, Rin, according to the name patch on his stolen armor, knelt beside her. "I've got medical training," he said, opening a kit. Rowan stepped back, letting him work, and moved to the cockpit. James was there, hands flying over controls. "Good timing," Rowan said. "Your data dump freed us. Seemed only fair to return the favor." James pulled the ship up, evading fire from below. "We picked up transmissions. Both human and Cathara forces received your evidence. There's chaos on every channel." Through the view screen, Rowan saw Talrek below, watching them escape. The commander's face was twisted with rage. This wasn't over. The ship broke atmosphere, stars spreading across the view screen in brilliant clarity. Rowan returned to where Saraketh lay, Rin working quickly to stabilize her wound. Her eyes were closed, breathing shallow but steady. "She'll survive," Rin said, meeting Rowan's gaze, "but she needs proper medical facilities." "There's a human outpost 3 hours from here," James said from the cockpit. "They'll have what we need." Rowan took Saraketh's hand, felt her fingers tighten weakly around his. Her eyes opened, amber irises finding him immediately. "We made it," she whispered. "We made it." The 3 hours passed in tense silence, everyone monitoring communications as the sector erupted into chaos. Human colonial forces were demanding answers. Cathara fleet commanders were calling for investigations. Talrek's name appeared repeatedly, some defending him, others calling for his arrest. The outpost appeared on Scopes, a small station orbiting a barren moon. James hailed them, transmitted medical emergency codes. They docked within minutes, medical personnel rushing aboard. Rowan watched them take Saraketh away on a stretcher, her hand slipping from his. She looked back once, something fierce and vulnerable in her eyes, before the doors closed between them. "She's strong," Rin said beside him. "She'll survive this." Rowan turned to the young Cathara warrior. "You were in those cells. How long?" 2 months. They took me when I questioned orders to fire on a human transport." Rin's jaw tightened. "I thought I was alone in doubting. Then your data proved I wasn't." James joined them, looking exhausted. "Command wants to debrief you. Both human and Cathara representatives are en route." "In the wind, but his allies are being rounded up on both sides." James clapped Rowan's shoulder. "You did it. You stopped a war." Rowan looked toward the medical bay. "We stopped it, both of us." The debriefing lasted 6 hours, human and Cathara officers questioning him separately, then together. They wanted details about the facility, about Talrek's operation, about how he and Sarakith had uncovered the conspiracy. Rowan gave them everything, watching their faces as the full scope of the plot became clear. When they finally released him, he went straight to medical. Sarakith was awake, sitting up in bed despite the protests of the attending physician. The wound was bandaged, color returning to her skin. Her ears perked up when she saw him, and something in his chest loosened. "You should be resting," he said. "I've rested enough." She swung her legs off the bed, wincing slightly. "They're saying both our governments are opening formal diplomatic channels. First time in history." "Because of what we found." "Because of what we did." She stood, moved to him. They were close now, close enough that he could see the fine details of her markings, the way her pupils dilated as she looked at him. "Rowan, I need to tell you something." "What?" "I'm being recalled to Cathara space to testify against Talrek's faction." Her hand found his chest, rested over his heart. "They want me to return to my fleet, resume my duties." "That's good. You're a warrior. You belong." "I don't know where I belong anymore." Her was raw, honest. 3 days ago I knew exactly who I was, what I believed, what I wanted. Then I met you and everything changed. Rowan covered her hand with his. "Sarah, let me finish." She took a breath. "My species sees yours as prey, as lesser, but you're not. You're brilliant and brave, and you showed me kindness when you had every reason to leave me for dead. You made me question everything I was taught, everything I believed." "You did the same for me," Rowan said quietly. "Made me believe that maybe our species don't have to be enemies, that maybe there's another way." She looked up at him and he saw the same vulnerability he'd seen in the mining complex when they'd faced death together. "I don't want to leave you," she whispered. "Then don't. It's not that simple. I have duties, obligations." "Sarah." He cupped her face, thumb tracing the line of one of her markings. "We just exposed a conspiracy that would have killed billions. We proved that humans and Cathara can work together, trust each other. If we can do that, we can figure out the rest." She leaned into his touch, eyes closing. "You make it sound easy. It won't be. It'll be complicated and messy and probably cause a dozen diplomatic incidents." He waited until she opened her eyes. "But I don't care. I want to try. If you do." Her answer was to kiss him, fierce and claiming. Rowan pulled her close, careful of her injury, feeling the heat of her body against his. She tasted like hope and promise, like a future neither of them had imagined possible. When they broke apart, she was smiling. "I have a proposal," she said. "I'm listening." "They want to establish a joint task force. Humans and Cathara working together to root out the remaining conspirators, secure the frontier." Her fingers traced patterns on his chest. "They need people who've proven they can cooperate across species lines, people who've already worked together successfully." Rowan started to smile. "Are you asking me to partner with you officially?" "I'm asking you to change the galaxy with me." She pulled back enough to meet his eyes fully. "No more hiding in the frontier, no more running from who we are or what we could be. Together." He thought about his quiet life, the solitude he'd chosen. Thought about everything that had happened in the past 3 days. The crash, the conspiracy, the moment he'd realized this alien warrior meant more to him than he'd ever expected anyone could. "Together," he agreed. Sarakith kissed him again, slower this time, savoring it. When they finally separated, she rested her forehead against his. "Fair warning," she said. "My people are going to hate this. Yours probably will too." "Let them," Rowan smiled. "We'll prove them wrong, just like we proved Talrek wrong. He's still out there, still dangerous. Then we'll stop him together." She laughed, the sound bright and genuine. "You really think we can do this? Change centuries of hostility and mistrust?" "We already did." He gestured toward the window, where human and Cathara ships were docking side by side for the first time in history. "That's happening because we refuse to be what everyone expected, because we chose to trust each other when it mattered most." Sarakith followed his gaze, her hand finding his and lacing their fingers together. Human and Cathara, different but somehow perfect. "The hunter's heart," she said softly. "What?" "Old Cathara saying, when a predator chooses to protect instead of kill, when mercy becomes stronger than hunger." She looked at him, amber eyes bright. "You have a hunter's heart, Rowan Blackwood. You saw prey and chose to save her instead." "You're not prey, you never were." "No," she smiled. "I'm yours, if you'll have me." Rowan pulled her close, breathed in the wild scent of her. "Always." Outside, the galaxy was changing. Two species learning to trust, to cooperate, to build something new from the ashes of old hatreds. And at the center of it all, a human and a Cathara who had found something neither had known they needed. Each other. Weeks later, they stood together on the bridge of the first joint human-Cathara vessel, watching as crews from both species worked side by side. The task force was growing, volunteers from both peoples joining the cause. Talrek was still hunting them, but now they hunted him back. Sarakith leaned against Rowan's shoulder, her tail curling around his leg in a gesture that had become familiar, comforting. "No regrets?" she asked. He thought about everything they'd been through, everything still to come, the challenges, the opposition, the danger. Then he looked at her, this fierce warrior who had crashed into his life and changed everything. "Not one," he said. She smiled, rose on her toes to kiss him. Around them, the crew pretended not to notice, though he caught more than one smile from both humans and Cathara. The future was uncertain, the galaxy was vast and dangerous, but they had each other, and that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.